Now let's see if this is you. You've done pretty well in life and you've earned the right to a prestigious executive car. You'd rather like a Mercedes-Benz, but not a dull-looking one like the guy over the road drives. If that three-pointed star could be mounted on the bonnet of something with proper rear seat space that cuts more of a dash, something a little more cutting edge, you'd be interested. And you'd be a Mercedes CLS target market buyer. A cross between saloon and a coupe, this model has long pioneered an appealing niche within the full-sized executive sector as a highly distinctive proposition with comfortable backseat room but styling that suggests otherwise. Though extremely refined and silky smooth on the road, it also has a subtly sportier flavour than the E-Class on which it's based, especially in the faster, more efficient and more sophisticated third-generation form we look at here.
It sounds a simple concept, combining the elegance and dynamism of a coupe with the comfort and functionality of a saloon. This car, though, was the first to perfect it, Mercedes CLS. It's been around since 2004, with the Mark II model launched in 2011 and the third generation version that we're going to test here introduced in 2018. As inventor of the original motor car, Mercedes makes a point of constantly trying to reinvent it. Whether the initiative is a gull-wing door or a groundbreaking safety system, the chances are you first saw it with a three-pointed star on the bonnet. The Stuttgart Mica hasn't been quite so successful, though, in pioneering new market niches. But one exception has been the contradictory-sounding concept of the four-door coupe. When the original version of this CLS model first introduced this idea, the result was exactly the kind of full executive segment car that you wouldn't have expected this conservative brand to bring us. Attention-grabbing, extrovert, cool and trendy, prioritising form over function. It may have been very much E-Class based, but the CLS was definitely an E-Class on an evening out. Rival manufacturers hurried to copy the concept, either with coupe-like rear styling for their conventional executive saloons like Jaguar's XF, or with standalone models that matched familiar luxury underpinnings with swoopier bodywork like BMW's 5 Series GT and Audi's A7 Sportback. Volkswagen even replicated the thinking behind the CLS in smaller, cheaper form with their Passat CC. Mercedes eventually responding in kind with an A-Class based CLA model in 2012. Many, though, felt the original still to be the best, and over 2 generations, the CLS model line ruled its small but profitable little fashion-led market niche. Time and technology move on, though, and by 2018, this car was facing tougher competition, primarily from BMW's 6 Series Gran Turismo and the rejuvenated second-generation version of Audi's A7 Sportback. Hence the need for this third generation CLS, which brings us more eye-catching styling and a new range of engines, while promising an interior to die for that for the first time can seat up to 5 people. Plus, there are big progressions in media connectivity, camera-driven safety technology and autonomous driving capability, all borrowed from the current E-Class. Now, there is no unusual shooting brake estate body style option this time around, but this car does share a great deal with the desirable Mercedes-AMG GT 4-door coupe that the brand will offer you if the top, fastest, petrol-powered CLS variant somehow isn't quick enough or isn't exclusive enough for you. Plus, of course, Stuttgart also offers the stylish 2-door E-Class coupe, which uses much of the same engineering as is on offer here. There'll be nothing quite like a CLS, though, if you have your eye on a full-sized executive segment saloon, but you want something that's, well, a little bit more original and distinctive. Time to put this third-generation C257 series model to the test. As before with this car, the driving experience is certainly more executive saloon than sports coupe, but don't despair. Mercedes haven't simply draped their efficient but rather clinical E-Class 4-door model in a fetching off-the-shoulder number. For a start, this feels more of a driver's car before you even go anywhere, and that's not only because the CLS's sweeping looks give an impression of power even before you've started the engine. Now, the cabin allows you to sit lower than you would in a conventional plush saloon, and the controls cocoon you nicely at the wheel in front of instrumentation that's now dominated by a pair of widescreen displays that give the interior a very futuristic feel. Now, we should talk about engines, which, as you'd expect, are of a very different generation to those of this model's predecessor. In a bid to make green pump fueled power a more credible option this time around, Mercedes is offering 4- and 6-cylinder petrol units with clever mild hybrid setups. Here, a 48-volt electrical system supplements the usual 12-volt setup and combines with the brand's much-trumpeted EQ boost technology. The two letters designate the inclusion of an integrated ISG starter generator, which combines starter motor and generator into one powerful electric motor, and that's housed between the engine and the transmission. As well as a range of efficiency benefits, this provides as much as 22 horsepower of extra grunt under hard acceleration, with extra pulling power low down right where you need it, and that helps to negate turbo lag below 2000 RPM. Which is welcome because the CLS is a bit more portly this time around, primarily due to the standard fitment of 4MATIC four-wheel drive, which Mercedes deems necessary to match what rival Audi A7 Sportback and BMW 6 Series Gran Turismo models are offering in this segment. As a result, you'd be wise, if budget permits, to ignore the entry-level 4-cylinder petrol and diesel variants and instead go straight for the inline 6-cylinder engines that this third-generation model was launched with. Continuing on with our review of petrol power, let's tell you that your 6-cylinder options start with the 367 HP CLS 454matic, which dispatches 62 miles an hour from rest in just 4.8 seconds, to the accompaniment of a bit of extra aural excitement piped through the stereo speakers. Now that makes it only 0.3 of a second slower than the top Mercedes-AMG CLS 53 4MATIC Plus model, which uses the same engine tuned up to 435 HP. If you still haven't weaned yourself off the idea of diesel power, though, you'll be pleased to hear that the straight-six 3-litre black pump fuel power plant on offer this time around is a more willing and more tractable thing than its V6 predecessor. Now, it comes in 2 states of tune, with the volume CLS 350D 4MATIC variant offering 282 HP and 600 Nm of torque, and that's good enough to propel the car to 62 in 5.7 seconds. The alternative CLS 400D derivative that we're trying here pushes it up to 340 HP and 700 Nm of torque, and that improves that sprint figure to 5 seconds flat. Like all the 6-cylinder CLS variants, these two are limited to 155 miles an hour flat out. A 9-speed automatic gearbox is a standard fitment across the range, and it works as seamlessly here as it does in the many other Mercedes models in which we've tried it. Change times in that auto gearbox are one of the things that are influenced by the standard dynamic select driving mode system, the others being throttle response, steering feedback, and the reactions of the standard selective damping system, which is included as part of the agility control passive suspension setup. Now, as usual with Mercedes, there are Eco, Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus and individual options, and they're all accessible via this rocker switch down here on the centre console. Now, we've kept the car in comfort for most of our time with it, and we have a feeling that you will too. In this setting, tarmac tears are dispatched with supple ease, but if you want even more of a magic carpet demeanour, there is another option. Mercedes offers its air body control air suspension as an option on the mainstream CLS models, and it's well worth considering. Now, this system uses pneumatic bags in place of traditional steel springs to cushion the car from the surface, and that's something that you're most aware of over sharp road undulations and things like speed humps and drain covers. For the rest of the time, the whole setup simply creates a supremely cosseting feel, and it can make major highway journeys particularly pleasant. The system automatically lowers the car by 15mm at speeds of over 75 miles an hour to reduce aerodynamic drag, and if you're driving up ramps or at low speeds over rough roads, it enables you to raise the ride height by 25mm in the 4-cylinder models or 35mm in the 6-cylinder versions. As with previous CLS models, twisting secondary routes don't really sit in this car's comfort zone. Through twistier sections, you'll need to be in one of the Dynamic Select System Sport modes to keep the body from floating around too much. And that'll also help with more accurate cornering placement, well, to some extent anyway. The rather vague steering isn't especially communicative, even when it wakes up a bit. Ultimately, though, this isn't really any sort of sports car. It weighs nearly 2 tons, and in its mainstream guises, it's not especially happy being hurried. Long highway journeys, though, are of course very much its forte. Befitting its GT status, this car is incredibly refined, and that's aided by its laminated window glass. And you're going to enjoy this Mercedes even more over lengthy distances if you're able to equip it with the optional semi-autonomous driving technology that the brand's developed for this C257 series design. This allows the car to pretty much drive itself. It works with the adaptive cruise control and active steering systems to keep the CLS rolling in its chosen lane at any speed up to 130 miles an hour, the steering wheel motoring itself left and right as it keeps the car on course. All you have to do is make some sort of input every 30 seconds to prove that you're paying attention. Now, if you don't, the car will warn you in no uncertain terms, and if you don't respond, it'll ultimately stop itself and activate the hazard lights to teach you a lesson. In other countries, it's possible to use the autonomous driving technology to a greater extent, something limited here to some extent by UK legislation. We can, though, get the benefit of something almost as good, a so-called car-to-X communication system, which allows this Mercedes to often almost magically respond to future weather or traffic conditions, or to somehow know what's around the next corner. It's not magic, of course. The setup's instead driven by a mobile phone-supported exchange of information system, which sees this CLS sending data on driving conditions back to a central hub, which then shares it with other Mercedes drivers. And staying on the subject of smart technology, there's even an optional app which will allow you to park this car remotely with your smartphone. It's the kind of gadget that you simply won't be able to resist playing with. We couldn't. CLS styling has always been, in Mercedes' words, emotionally charged. Not everyone's been a fan of this model in its first 2 generations, but those who have liked it have really loved it. Most agree that the lines of the original 2004 version were more memorably sweeping than those of that model's more clinically fashioned successor, and that was a dynamically dramatic look that Chief Designer Gordon Wagner says his team have tried to recapture with this 3rd generation C257 series car. There's certainly plenty of road presence and an air of substance too, although careful trim and finishing is necessary to achieve a truly eye-catching end result. The forward slanting front end is reminiscent of a shark's nose, and it appears longer thanks to the fully inset bonnet. Flat, wide LED headlights with inward slanting flanks follow the contours of the single louvered diamond style grille that widens towards its base like that of the Mercedes-AMG GT sports car. The standard AMG body styling package gives the lower corner intakes these twin fins that add a bit more overtaking presence. It's from the side, though, that you'd most readily recognise this car to be a CLS. This 3rd generation version replicates familiar model line design cues like the distinctive long bonnet, the high waistline with the narrow look frameless side windows, and a dynamically low roof profile sweeping towards the back. A muscular rear shoulder line blends smoothly into the flat boot lid, while this upwardly slanting lower crease here gives the flanks some shape. And the pronounced side sills of the AMG package separate large 19-inch 5 twin-spoke AMG alloy wheels. Now, the rear is the area of the car that most significantly separates it from its most direct segment competitors, which are all 5-door Gran Turismo style models. The CLS remains doggedly committed to the 4-door coupe concept. That's something that Mercedes hopes is emphasised by various characteristic coupe features. The position of the number plate and the reflectors in the bumper, for example, or more notably, the design of these 2-section tail lights. Now, they're LED lit, of course, and they feature special edge light backlighting with a 3-dimensional crystalline appearance. Twin chromed tailpipes recessed into either corner of this lower diffuser panel complete the effect. Under the skin, everything's E-Class derived as before, but the window dressing couldn't be more different. Now, with all that going on outside, you could perhaps have excused Mercedes from taking the easy way out and simply sticking an E-Class interior in the cabin. In the first generation CLS, they probably should have done just that, because the vast plank of wood that ran across its dashboard wasn't that car's most appealing feature. Since then, though, things really have improved dramatically. The second generation model's interior was elegant, and the cabin of this one, well, it progresses to the level of opulence. Although some of our testers found that this open pore light grey ashwood trimming was a trifle overpowering. You might conceivably feel just the same way about the vodka bar style cabin lighting, which is also built into the air vents, which change from red to blue depending on the temperature setting. Just 2 of 64 cabin colours that you'll be able to scroll through if you have nothing else to do. Now, we mentioned the air vents. They are rather eye-catching, using the jet turbine style design that Mercedes reserves for its coupe models, with 4 outlets at the top of the centre stack, along with a larger vent by each door. Rather more controversial, though, is the way that this Mark III CLS wholeheartedly embraces the widescreen cockpit design that Mercedes is rolling out across its model range. Here, this package is standard, 12.3-inch virtual instrument binnacle display joined to one of the same size in the middle of the fascia, creating one huge floating style screen that flows right across the dash and is framed by subtle ambient lighting. Now, some dismiss this whole setup as being a bit over the top. One writer likened it to walking into a medium-sized living room to find a giant flat-screen TV dominating the wall. We actually really like the way that this technology integrates so seamlessly into the fascia design, although it does seem a touch incongruous to also include an old-style analogue clock halfway down the centre stack. You can control quite a few of the functions offered by this double screen arrangement via these neat little touch pads on the 3-spoke flat-bottomed AMG steering wheel. Now, using these, you can customise the instrument display ahead of you via 3 settings. The Classic and Sport layouts give you 2 virtual dials, or you can choose instead the progressive setup, which focuses on 1 gauge, the bottom of which can depict a neat safety assistance graphic if required. You can set up the right side of the instrument screen to show a rev counter, a G-force meter, navigation information, a trip computer, or an eco display, which helps you drive more efficiently. As for the centre dash infotainment monitor, well, as usual, the sophisticated graphics of this optional command online setup make those of every other rival system look a bit second rate. And particularly nice are the vehicle sections that give you engine data dials and allow you to tailor your preferred driving settings via the dynamic select driving mode system. There's linguatronic voice control and all the usual infotainment stuff too, of course, with 3D mapping and live traffic information. Plus, you can connect in your smartphone via the Android Auto or Apple CarPlay systems. It's also possible to create an integrated WLAN, that's Wireless Local Area Network hotspot. In addition, the package provides a media segment, which will give you a web browser for things like Facebook, and a useful MB apps section. Now, this includes weather reports, access to internet radio, and a useful local search function, which allows you to find anything from a filling station to a fish restaurant, a passenger terminal to a parking space. The command system's functionality is primarily controlled by what at first glance looks as if it might be the auto gear stick. It isn't. As usual on a mainstream Mercedes, gears are dealt with by a steering column stalk up here. Instead, this rather futuristic looking protuberance manages with all your infotainment needs. It has a rotary dial that swivels, slides and pushes, and that's below a higher surface touchpad, which allows letters, numbers and special characters to be handwritten, although in this right hand drive model, of course, there's the awkwardness of having to do that with your left hand. What else? Well, this stitched leather dash coating is standard, but the hide used for this and for the seats is of the man-made Artico variety, unless you pay extra, of course. Mind you, that is about the only thing that you could conceivably complain about with these front chairs. They're perfectly contoured and fitted around the driver to give ample comfort during long trips. Part electric operation and heating is standard, as is electro-pneumatic 4-way lumbar support to help avoid any backaches. As for cabin storage, well, there's pretty much everything that you would want. This beautifully damped cover at the bottom of the centre stack conceals a stowage area, a USB socket and a rather cheap feeling double cup holder attachment which can be lifted out when that's not in use. Further back there's this large twin-lidded box between the seats with an SD card slot and 2 USB points. Plus, there's an overhead compartment for your sunglasses. There's also a reasonably shaped glove box, a stowage net in the front passenger footwell. There are ticket clips under the sun visors and decently sized door pockets. Time to take a seat in the rear. Now this third generation CLS is 59mm longer and 15mm wider than its predecessor, and it shares the same wheelbase as the brand's quite spacious, more conventional E-Class saloon, so it ought not to feel too coupe-like in the back. True, the sweeping roofline does mean you have to duck a bit once you open one of these frameless doors and step inside. But once you're in place back here, it's actually not too bad in terms of space to spread out. Legroom's aided by the particularly slim front seats with their scalloped knee-level cutouts. There are caveats, of course. I mean, if you're particularly tall, you'll find the top of your head rather close to the roofline, and you certainly won't want to be confined to position in the middle of this bench, perched on this uncomfortable piece of foam with your feet astride this prominent centre transmission tunnel. Now, that's necessary to accommodate this modern-era design's additional 4MATIC hardware. Still, we shouldn't complain. This third-generation CLS is the first in the model line in which it's actually been possible to take 3 people on the back seat. And that's a change, presumably in response to feedback from previous customers who were annoyed to find they couldn't do things like give their kids' friends a lift home from school. Younger folk might find this high window line a touch claustrophobic, though. If there are only 2 of you, then this central armrest can be retracted with its lidded storage tray and neat pull-out cup holders. Other nice touches include 2 more jet turbine style air vents and beautifully crafted door cards that here incorporate the intricately fashioned speaker grills of the optional Burmester sound system. Storage that's taken care of by seat back pockets and reasonably sized door bins, plus there's a pull out centre compartment which has storage plus 12-volt and USB ports. Let's move around to the boot, which can be equipped with this rather pointless powered lid. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this Mercedes model's 2 closest rivals in this segment give you a hatched area rather than a conventional trunk. And whether you're likely to miss that extra versatility will depend on what kind of buyer you are. And we would make the point that this CLS's boot is very acceptably large for any car calling itself a coupe anyway. With 520 litres on offer, there's just 20 litres less than you'll get in a conventional Mercedes E-Class saloon and just 15 litres less than the cargo area in the rival Audi A7 Sportback. As a result, up to 7 carry-on cases could be accommodated here. A rival BMW 6 Series GT could take 9 though, thanks to its 90 litres of extra room. It's a practical space too. There's a netted left-hand storage area for smaller items, a pull-down bag hook here and 4 tie-down hooks. There's no 12-volt socket though. You get lots of underfloor capacity too, though only because Mercedes doesn't fit any kind of spare wheel. At least this underfloor area does also include this rather useful fold-out shopping crate. If you're taking longer items, then you'll be glad of the way that, as standard, the rear bench splits 40-20-40, so you can flatten the middle section for things like skis without affecting a couple of rear-seated passengers. If you are able to flatten the main parts of the back seat, then you'll do it via these neat catches that you'll find on the cargo area ceiling. From launch, CLS pricing was positioned firmly in premium territory, with all 3 mainstream 3-litre straight-six petrol and diesel variants pitched at or around £60,000. All come complete with 4MATIC 4-wheel drive, 9G Tronic 9-speed automatic transmission and dynamic AMG line trim. The 286 HP 350D diesel and 367 HP 450 petrol versions cost much the same, or you could find yourself just under £3,000 more, crest the £60,000 price point and get yourself the 340 HP 400D diesel variant that we're trying here. Now, you can also talk to your dealer about slightly more affordable 4-cylinder petrol and diesel engine options. The petrol unit packages up the brand's clever EQ booster technology into slightly more affordable form. At the other end of the range lies the top Mercedes-AMG CLS 53 4MATIC Plus flagship variant, which gets a firmer setup, sharper shifting AMG speed shift transmission and a tuned 435 HP version of the standard 450 model's 3-litre straight-six engine. You'd expect to pay quite a premium for the extra style of a CLS over a conventional E-Class saloon, and you'd be right. Mercedes has intentionally made it quite difficult to compare the two model lines by limiting the engine overlap between them. But for reference, the 400D 4MATIC AMG line package that we're trying here can be had in E-Class saloon form, where it would save you around £8,000. As we mentioned elsewhere in this film, buyers of this Mark III CLS model aren't offered the alternative shooting brake estate body style that was available with the previous generation version of this model. As for competitors, well, it's quite possible that potential customers for this car could be coming from all kinds of executive class large saloons, or conceivably even one of those coupe-style large SUVs. In terms of really direct rivals, though, that aim to replicate this CLS model line's coupe-style Gran Turismo concept, there are really only two, the BMW 6 Series Gran Turismo and the Audi A7 Sportback. Now, both differ slightly from this Mercedes in offering 5 doors rather than 4, but both will cost you much the same as this CLS if you get yourself a like-for-like comparison by insisting on 4-wheel drive and a similar level of spec. Now, you'll see that when we get specific. The petrol-powered 362 HP CLS 450 AMG line model requires the same £58,000 budget as the directly comparable Audi A7 Sportback 55 TFSI with 335 HP and S-line trim, and it's also equally priced against a BMW 6 Series Gran Turismo 640i xDrive with 340 HP and equivalent M Sport spec. Switch your attention to diesel power, and it's much the same story. The entry-level 6-cylinder diesel variant that most buyers of this CLS will choose, the 282 HP 350D, was, as we mentioned earlier, launched costing around £58,000 with standard AMG line trim. Now, that is almost exactly the same as a directly equivalent Audi A7 Sportback 50 TDI with 282 HP and S-line trim. Also priced at the same level is the BMW 6 Series Gran Turismo 630D xDrive with 265 HP and M Sport trim. At the launch of this Mercedes, though, those Audi and BMW models couldn't deliver a faster diesel engine to match the uprated 335 HP power output of the CLS 400D variant that we're trying here. But maybe you want an alternative to an Audi, a BMW or a Mercedes in your search for this kind of car. And if so, then you'll want to know that there are other options, but they're less directly comparable. Now, if you don't care about badge equity and you want to save a bit of money, the top V6 GTS version of Kia's Stinger delivers the GT concept for about £40,000, as arguably does the top Volkswagen Arteon. At the other extreme, if you have a little more money to spend than Stuttgart's asking here, Porsche's Panamera provides a really luxurious take on Gran Turismo-style motoring from just over £66,000. If you're of an eco mindset, then you might want to note that the same amount would buy you this kind of car with all-electric propulsion in the form of the Tesla Model S. Other slightly more conventional sporting executive saloons, which potential buyers might also be looking at for CLS money, well, they would include Maserati's Ghibli and the top 3-litre versions of the Jaguar XF. If, having considered all of that, you conclude it is a CLS that you really want, then equivalent levels shouldn't disappoint. Now, as we said, sporty AMG line trim is standard, which gets you AMG body styling for the front apron, the rear apron and the side skirts, plus 19-inch 5 twin-spoke AMG alloy wheels featuring perforated brake discs with Mercedes-Benz lettering on the calipers. The 6-cylinder petrol model gets a sports exhaust too. Inside, this more dynamic style of trim is reflected by a flat-bottomed AMG AMG 3-spoke multifunction Napa leather trimmed steering wheel, brushed stainless steel pedals and AMG floor mats. CLS stuff that you'd have to pay extra for on an equivalent E-Class includes the Mercedes multi-beam LED intelligent light system with cornering lights and an ultra-range high beam, and the virtual dials of the widescreen 12.3-inch TFT instrument binnacle display that can be customised with 3 styles: Classic, Sport and Progressive. On top of this, there's all the kit you'd expect to find on a full-sized executive 4-door model of this price. So you can tick off auto headlamps and wipers, keyless go ignition, power folding mirrors, cruise control, the speed limiter and an auto-dimming rear-view mirror. Plus, there's a dynamic select driving mode system, which alters steering feel, throttle response, gear shift timings and ride quality from the agility control passive suspension with its selective damping system. There's also a 64-colour ambient lighting package and a seat comfort package too, with electro-pneumatic 4-way lumbar support and cushion depth adjustment for the front chairs. Front and rear parking sensors and a rear view camera of course feature too, here paired with an active parking assist setup which can steer you into spaces. What else? Well, there are heated front seats, and unlike in the E-Class, Mercedes doesn't make you pay extra here for a split folding rear bench. Talking of seats, the real leather upholstery that you get with rivals is a little disappointingly replaced in the standard CLS spec by man-made Artico hide, but it covers the upper section of the dashboard and it uses contrasting stitching for a classier feel. And that is further emphasised by the black roofliner and the open-pore grey ash wood trim. The Audio 20 infotainment system has a 12.3-inch centre dash display to complete the widescreen cockpit effect, and of course it includes a DAB tuner and a navigation system, although the standard setups are the basic SD card operated one. Now obviously, if you were to stretch to the top Mercedes-AMG 53 4MATIC Plus variant, you want a bit more, which is why on that variant you get unique AMG trimming for the steering wheel, AMG branded brake calipers and bespoke seats upholstered in proper Napa leather. On top of this, the AMG 53 version gets as standard the Premium Plus package, which you'd have to pay extra for on the ordinary CLS. This gives you a 360-degree surround view camera setup, a 13-speaker 590-watt Burmester stereo system, an electric sliding sunroof, full rather than part electric adjustment for the front seats along with memory settings, plus there's the keyless go comfort package, and that gives you keyless entry and a powered boot lid. In addition, there's a more sophisticated command online infotainment setup. Now, we think the command package is worth paying the extra for if that's what you have to do. It gets you better hard disk drive 3D navigation, in-car Wi-Fi and a year's subscription to the Mercedes concierge service, and that provides connection to an operator at the press of a button to deliver virtually any journeying information you might need to know. In addition, there's 3 years use of the brand's live traffic service and its in-car office feature, and that gives you in-car access to your emails and your calendar. The command package also includes the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone integration systems that disappointingly are missing from the lesser Audio 20 setup, and it incorporates another feature that we really like, and that's what Mercedes calls car-to-X communication. Now this is a mobile phone supported exchange of information system, and that'll see your CLS sending data on driving conditions back to a central hub, which then shares it with other Mercedes drivers. And that'll mean that in a way that's almost magical, your CLS will know in advance about things like icy conditions and traffic jams. It's really clever. Now, talking of cutting-edge information technology, like most premium brands, Mercedes has developed systems which allow you to monitor many aspects of your car from your smartphone. Every CLS comes as standard with the Mercedes Me Connect services package, and that works via a free app. This reminds you when a service is due, and it can automatically detect and share with you details on your car's wear and tear items. In addition, the app gives you a one-touch button for fast breakdown recovery, an alarm feature which will tell you when your parking meter is just about to expire, and an emergency call system which will automatically alert the rescue services in the event of an accident. CLS buyers also get the extra package of remote online Mercedes Me features that normally cost extra on the standard E-Class. That's really clever stuff. You'll be able to lock or unlock the car from wherever you are and locate your vehicle's position if you've gone and forgotten where you parked it. If you lend your CLS out, a geofencing feature will alert you if it leaves a preset geographical boundary, and if the car's ever stolen, a vehicle tracker will show its position anywhere in the world. On to options. Now, we've talked about the main thing that you'll have to consider, the Premium Plus pack. We'd also ideally want the Comfort package, which gives you 4 key features. And the most important one is the Air Body Control Air Suspension System, and that delivers a magic carpet-like ride, very much in keeping with this CLS model's driving demeanour. In addition, the Comfort pack gives you an Air Balance package, which includes optimised air filtering and a choice of 4 cabin fragrances. There's also an energising comfort control system, which relaxes you via various selectable combinations of music, lighting and seat massaging. And there's soft Napa leather upholstery if the CLS variant you've chosen doesn't already have it. Otherwise, a little surprisingly for Mercedes, there's not a huge amount more to spend your money on in terms of luxury features, at least. If you've gone for the Premium Plus package, then you can wow your office colleagues by paying the small amount extra for 3 years use of the Remote Parking Assist feature, which will allow you to park your CLS remotely using a smartphone. You can also have privacy glass and a wireless phone charging mat. Practical options include a stowage tub or a stowage crate for the boot, a concertinaing load sill protector and a tow bar, roof carrier bars, a roof box and a roof bike rack. As for aesthetics, well, unless you want your CLS painted in solid black or white, you're going to have to pay Mercedes extra for one of the metallic finishes. Here we've got iridium silver, plus there are various alternative 19 or 20-inch wheel styles to choose from. Now, given this car doesn't come with a spare wheel, we'd be tempted by the fact that the 20 inches come with the run-flat tyres that you can't have on the smaller standard rims. You'll want to get the interior to your taste too. Whatever kind of leather you choose on the standard models, there are black or beige options, while the AMG 53 model's upholstery can also be had in a vibrant red if you happen to be more extrovert. We had expected that there would be lots of cabin inlay choices to vary the look of the cabin, but from launch at least, there was only the light open pore grey ash wood trim that won't be to everyone's taste. The importers need to quickly expand that palette. Enough with that, let's switch to safety, which down the years has always been a primary consideration for Mercedes with this car. Let's give you some highlights from the roster this time around. Let's start with active braking assist. Now that warns the driver of an impending collision and brakes the car automatically if there's no response. And our testing has indicated that this whole setup will eradicate 20% of nose-to-tail accidents and will decrease their severity in a further 25% of cases. And there's more. All variants get crosswind assist that helps to stabilise the car in sudden side gusts of wind, and steer control steering assist that helps you to keep the wheel straight at cruising speeds. Attention assist will monitor your driving reactions for drowsiness, and the pre-safe anticipatory safety program will tighten the seat belts, close the windows and even adjust the seats in a fraction of a second if the stability system deems an accident is inevitable. There's also an active bonnet which protects pedestrians, and the usual twin front, side and curtain airbags. Plus there's a knee bag too for the driver. As you'd expect, tyre pressure monitoring and all the usual electronic aids for traction, braking and stability control are included too. And if you have a CLS with the command infotainment system fitted, then you'll get traffic sign recognition too. Want to go further, then you'll need to know that all the other extra cost safety features you can have with the CLS are grouped into an extra cost driving assistance plus package, and you're going to need that if you're going to be able to try the semi-autonomous driving technology that Mercedes makes so much of with this third generation model. Now, to experience this, you're going to need to be on a dual carriageway, and you're going to have to have activated 2 of the driving assistance package elements: active distance assisted distronic and active steering assist. Now, the distronic feature is basically A super advanced adaptive cruise control, which automatically regulates your distance to the car in front and can, if necessary, remotely slow the car with up to 50% of stopping power. Active steering assist keeps you in the centre of your designated lane, and it will, if needed, apply subtle steering correction to ease you back to where you should be. Ignore this and warning signals from another incorporated pack feature. Active lane keeping assist will tell you that your CLS has inadvertently crossed the lane separating lines. Now, if you're trying the autonomous driving capability, you'll also want to experience another clever feature that's part of this optional pack, the clever active lane changing assist system. On a dual carriageway with the active distance assist Distronic cruise control and the active steering assist operating, the car will overtake by itself. Yes, really, you just hold the indicator stalk for a couple of seconds and it will pull out to pass a slower vehicle and then slot itself back in lane as soon as it's safe to do so. Now, another included Driving Assistance Plus package element is the evasive steering assist feature. Now, that scans the road ahead for pedestrians and supports you in making sudden steering manoeuvres to avoid them. Pedestrians are also targeted by an upgraded active braking assist system, and that's embellished to be able to also look out for unexpected tailbacks and crossing traffic. There's more in the Driving Assistance Plus package too. Active blind spot assist stops you from dangerously pulling out to overtake when you're on the move. And route-based speed adaptation uses navigation data to automatically adapt your speed before curves, roundabouts, junctions and toll roads. The pack also includes upgrades to the standard pre-safe system that we referenced earlier. They're there to better protect you in a collision. Pre-safe Plus helps specifically with vehicles running into the back of you. If necessary, locking the brakes on standstill to prevent the car from being pushed into danger. And Pre-Safe Impulse Side uses a lateral impulse to prepare the front occupants for a side impact, thereby reducing the risk of injury. It's all very reassuring. Previous generation versions of this CLS were sold almost exclusively with diesel engines. The only reason you'd have opted for a green pump fueled variant from this model line in the past would have been because you wanted one of the V8 AMG performance derivatives. Going forward, Mercedes knows things have to change, and to ensure that this will happen, it has incorporated its latest EQ boost mild hybrid engineering into the petrol power plants on offer. As part of this, a 48-volt electrical system supplements the usual 12-volt setup, and an integrated EQ boost starter alternator replaces a conventional alternator and provides power for energy-sapping items like the water pump and the air conditioning compressor. It also regulates engine idling, and it's integral to the brake energy regeneration system. And it enables so-called gliding, where the engine is temporarily switched off at cruising speeds to help save fuel. This is all part of what Mercedes calls systematically electrified technology, but unfortunately for Stuttgart, the rival Audi A7 Sportback also uses it, so any potential efficiency advantage over petrol versions of that car have been nullified. In fact, the fuel return of a petrol CLS 450 36.2 mpg on the combined cycle is about 10% worse than you get in a directly comparable A7 Sportback 55 TFSI, and the CLS 450's CO2 reading, 181 grams per kilometre, is considerably less than you get from that Ingolstadt competitor. The Merc does, though, slightly better the readings possible from its other most direct rival, the BMW 6 Series GT 640i xDrive. The same 3-litre straight-six petrol engine with much the same EQ boost technology also features in uprated 429 HP form in the top Mercedes-AMG CLS 53 variant, and that's why that derivative is considerably more efficient than you might expect it to be. Well, given that this is a high-performance petrol engine sports GT capable of reaching 62 miles an hour in just 4.5 seconds. Most buyers, though, are going to be choosing the new generation inline 6-cylinder diesel engine that we've been trying here. Now, it's a mark of just how closely the three leading German brands are copying each other's technology that the 48.7 mpg combined cycle reading that the volume 350D version of this car delivers is exactly the same as the figure recorded by that model's two direct competitors, the A7 Sportback 50 TDI and the 6 Series GT 630D xDrive. Go for this CLS 400D variant, and the 47.9 mpg figure is hardly any different. Both CLS 6-cylinder diesel derivatives deliver 156 grams per kilometre of CO2, and that's very class competitive. And it's very little different to what you'd manage in a comparable E-Class saloon. What else? Well, it's annoying that only the CLS 450 petrol model gets a properly sized 80-litre fuel tank. All the other derivatives are limited to 66 litres, and that'll restrict your driving range a bit. All the industry's current efficiency aids feature here, of course, so every CLS gets an eco start-stop function to cut the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Plus the diesels also use an AdBlue system to cleanse their fuel of impurities, and that uses additive from a reservoir that'll need to be topped up at regular services. In addition, of course, the driver will need to play his or her part. Obviously, to get anywhere near the returns we've quoted, you'll need to set the dynamic select driving mode system into its eco setting. Now, this marginally limits the accelerator pedal curve, and it also slightly restricts the output of the seat heating, the heated rear window, and the air conditioning. You can also bring up two options on the two fascia monitors, which will help. Consumption option in the vehicle section of the center dash screen shows your recent attempts at frugality, and a selectable eco display in the instrument binnacle grades your driving based on acceleration, decelerating, and constancy of speed, and shows in real time the bonus frugality that you've achieved through careful driving since the start of your trip. What else? Well, all CLS models are, of course, priced well above the £40,000 threshold, so owners will need to pay a luxury car tax that'll set them back an extra £310 in the first year of ownership. That annual charge then rises to £450 until the fifth year you own the car. Other things we need to tell you include the fact that the comprehensive 3-year unlimited mileage warranty is built on by Mercedes' Mobilo scheme, and that delivers breakdown cover for up to 30 years as long as you continue to have the car serviced at a Mercedes main dealer. And it's also worth knowing that your maintenance outlay can be kept a little in check by going for the optional service care package, which takes care of routine maintenance, spreading the cost of regular servicing, guaranteeing the price of parts and labour for up to 4 services, and also covering the cost of all recommended service items like brake fluid, spark plugs, air filters, fuel filters, and screen wash. There's also an assist dashboard service indicator that monitors engine use and tells you exactly when a garage visit's due. For reference, servicing is usually required every 15,500 miles or every year, whichever comes first. Fixed price servicing is available across the range, and most buyers opt for the Mercedes Service Care Plan, which could cost you as little as about £33 a month based on either a 2-service, 2-year deal, 3 services with 3 years, or 4 years with 4 services. It's also worth mentioning that the optional Mercedes Me Connect services package includes remote self-diagnostic capability, and that enables your CLS to monitor wear and tear items and alert your local dealer to let you know if something needs seeing to. You can also insure your car through Mercedes, although most company drivers will have that included in their lease cost. If you do pay the insurance on the car yourself, you'll need to know about the ratings, which are, as you'd expect, very competitive with obvious rivals. Residual values aren't as high as those you'd get for a more affordable E-Class model. Independent experts predict a residual figure of 41.4% for this CLS 400D after 3 years and 60,000 miles. Still, that is a showing comparable or better than the best that could be managed by direct rivals. Once upon a time, you could admire a Mercedes, aspire to ownership, or respect what it did, but it was rarely possible to form an emotional bond with one. But then, the CLS arrived and changed all that, as it still does. This Mark III model may not be quite as arresting as the first generation original, but it'll still make a splash in the office car park, and it'll mark you out as an independent thinker. Now, if that's the case, you may well agree with us that this 4-door formula is certainly more elegant than the hatchback format that rivals in this sector use. Now, we think that the opulent, colour configurable cabin ambience will also sell this car to you, and that's if you're not already convinced by the cutting-edge safety, media connectivity, and autonomous driving technology. Plus, this Mercedes is actually quite practical too, with a surprisingly large boot and at last space for 3 on the back seat. Other issues? Well, not many. Premium pricing just reflects what competitors are charging in this segment. Conceivably, some buyers may not like the widescreen cabin displays, and it is a pity that there's not more choice when it comes to interior trimming decor. Other than that, well, our comments are limited to observing that the steering could be sharper and smartphone mirroring really should be standard, but that's about it. For self-made business people seeking an appropriate but not extravagant reward for a lifetime's endeavour, the CLS remains an expressive, individual and very complete choice. That's provided you can afford the significant price tag. It's a very German expression of fashionability, but the right kind of buyer will find it very desirable indeed.